It's kind of podcast interview 101. You're going to put back about 3 to 5 gummy worms, depending on your,
pounds of
height
gummy
and
worm.
weight. Yeah, you want to do about 10% of your body weight in gummy worms. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Nils Mindnich. I'll be your host today, and this is the Backcountry Podcast, a show aimed towards providing insight on the outdoor industry by interviewing people who work within it. Now, for today's episode, we're going to be chatting with Alex Quiti. Alex, welcome.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. Now, Alex is a divisional merchandise manager for Backcountry, but he is also a bit of an ATV who spends a lot of time playing around in the mountains, whether that is skiing, climbing, fly fishing, or various other activities. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. You and I went out for a lap this morning. That was super helpful.
Yeah.
Set the vibe right.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to talk with you. I'm stoked to chat down
Yeah,
on a
man,
bunch
I'm
of
psyched
stuff.
too. Yeah,
So.
I got to give a good shout out to your tactic out the gate is that somehow Alex still has secret spots in the Wasatch, and bringing someone new into one of his spaces, he had a very simple tactic that we just had to do it in the dark. So I still have no clue where we went, but rode down in the daylight, and the turns were super nice. So appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, well, I don't even know where it was.
Okay, great.
Like we took this obscure turn off, and I was like, straight up, I could not find this if I tried.
Nature's blindfold, man. Yeah.
Now, I kind of want to start by getting into talking about your various athletic pursuits, because I would consider you a well-versed individual in the mountains, and that's skiing, climbing, as we said, fishing, and I feel like that's a pretty common trifecta, especially around Salt Lake. And, what's your 2 cents onto why that is?
I'm a product of my environment, I guess, is how I'd best describe it. And growing up here in Utah, living here, having my career, spending all the time in the mountains, is just, I looked around and I was like, well, how can I best experience where I live? Adapting to those environments. And skiing has number one been my passion since I was a little kid. I started skiing when I was 2 years old.
Okay, cool.
Ski raced when I was forever when I was a kid till I was about 14, and then did freestyle skiing, and then found touring finally in my late teens and early 20s. And then picked up climbing in the same sense when I picked up backcountry skiing, because I just wanted to go explore the mountains. I looked around me and the environments that I was in, in Little Compton, I would drive up the canyon and go skiing, and as I was driving up, I'd look around and I'd see these cliffs, and I'd be like, well, I want to go climb that now. I want to experience exactly. I want to go experience that I do experiencing the backcountry, when I go skiing. So that's how I connected those things. And then fishing, we've got amazing fishing around here. And what's also been magical about these activities is the ability to travel. It gives you that destination aspect of doing it. But the other thing that I've learned from fishing, and then the reason why I picked up fishing was I got injured and kind of was getting down on myself for not being able to be outside, not being able to do anything. Decided I was I need to find something that I can go and do that's doesn't require me to be completely physically involved. And picked up fly fishing. Was terrible at it to start, but I think the thing a lot of people realize about fishing, and it's kind of the most well-known thing about it, is that if you don't have the patience for it at first, it's it's something that you should try to learn, right? You should spend the time, and if you commit to it and you really have a passion for it, and you start thinking about it in a way start realizing that the best part about fishing are the same reasons why I love climbing and I love skiing. I was
going to say, it sounds similar to climbing almost, right?
Yeah, it's just being out in the mountains in this cerebral sense, and it allows you to go do something different. But you're out there. You're standing in the middle of this river like an astronaut, just trying to hunt down these fish that are underneath the water. And you're trying to figure out what they're eating, and you're I don't know what's going on here. But over time, I learned that patience, right?
Yeah, totally.
So and I think that trifecta to me it's been this perfect blend of both seasonality, being able to stay active consistently. But then also learning something new with each one of these activities. Fishing teaches me patience. Climbing teaches me how to control my mind and my ability to fight off fear primarily, because I get more scared climbing than I do anything else, because I like to challenge and push myself.
Yeah, for sure, right?
And then skiing, it's just being like understanding environments and the elements and being okay with that and being able to read the mountains and be respectful of avalanche danger and, you know, think about objectives in this new way where it's like more about that mountain sense of like, how can I go from point A to point B in this way, and how can I connect the dots even more? And, and then combining the two things, like taking climbing into skiing and doing rappels and lines and things like that. Like
totally.
Yeah. So
anyways. Have you combined fishing and skiing yet, you know, like
I've
tour
done
out to somewhere in the Uinta, so you go on like a nice, like, I don't know, mellow 10-mile tour to go ice fishing. Is that on your radar yet?
That's not a bad idea, actually, now that you say it. That would be like wild, you know? Instead
of using skiing to do something else that's extreme, you kind of just do skiing as a means to like do something super chill,
mellow, like take a nap in the backcountry.
Go take a nap. You know, that's really cool, man. Like, I think it's interesting that you kind of made that transition from ski racing, which seems to have this. You know, I went to high school with a lot of ski racers, and it is like a very intense, dedicated structure.
For sure.
You know, your sport is time-based, right? And it's like a lot of like performance, you know, color inside the lines type of things taking place in ski racing. But it's, you know, it's really cool that like it seems all these sports that you've sort of transitioned into as you sort of grew up kind of, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, have cultivated more of this like free creativity and like a play.
Exactly.
Almost.
Yeah, because it got to the point when I was ski racing that you either committed your whole life to it, and it was very structured, it was very precise, it was you're training for a specific thing, the size of your turns is fairly straightforward if you're doing between slalom, GS, super G downhill. And I didn't get burnt out. I essentially stopped myself from getting burnt out from skiing by saying to myself at that age and having the conversation with my family and being like, I want to move on to something else, right?
Yeah.
And my friends were doing freestyle skiing, so I like started doing some of that. But you're right, like what I've grown into or what I've found that's been more fulfilling for me about the backcountry in both climbing, skiing, fishing, and everything has been the creative mindset that you can take to it. Like backcountry skiing is beautiful in that sense where within the safeties of avalanches and the control of like your ability, you can go anywhere. Like you can go ski whatever you can see. You can ski it to some degree, and that's been really cool and fun. And you can apply that to climbing to some senses. Like there's more route specific things, but it's what's expanded my horizon on like putting up first ascents and doing things out on the mountains that, like, I think you put a nail on the head is like it's a creative thing process. It's not so much a controlled specific thing.
Totally, right? Like it's pretty cool. You know, you kind of, and I was listening to some other podcast about this, and essentially there's this like, you know, creativity, especially for adults, is kind of like rooted in play. And like it talked about like discussing how, you know, like a lot of children are super creative, and there's this like parallel between the place your like mind enters when you're able to play is this like, okay, there is a game of some sort that has like some outlines and rules, but within that game, backcountry skiing, climbing, fishing, there is just like infinite places that you can kind of take your adventure, right? And like it's sort of sick, you know, you end up, and I think that's why so many people get into it, right? Especially because so much of life has that structure to it, that you're able to enter this like creative, playful environment. And
I think that's like what attracts a lot of people to it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they start and they play by the rules, and they should. And, you know, they get their Ep.1, they commit to the safety aspect, and they try to like understand the basics, understand the rules of the game. But then, like you said, it's like then the game becomes kind of whatever you want it to be, especially with a good partner. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, and the community in that sense of like, they can show you the way, but really it's up to you whether or not you walk that direction or you go that way.
Yeah, totally. So. Oh man, it's so cool. And you know, you briefly touched on First Ascent, and we're touring this morning. First off, he's a beast. He's very, he's good at going uphill and going downhill, of course, but especially going uphill. You know, maybe it just has something to do that I'm in like snowboard boots, and you got like a dope kind of like, you know, pin binding ski thing going on. But I would like to contribute a large part of this is that you are in good shape and you're fast. So what I'm getting at here is I kind of heard you talking about a First Ascent this morning with Matt. but I was just too far away to really like hear anything about it. So, but it sounded cool, and we should talk about it. What's up?
Yeah. So, well, I was talking to Matt, and no, I appreciate you saying that, dude. But you're a ripper, like you know that. So I'm not even gonna go into.
I'm fine. I know I'm proficient. No. I just know where I lie. I know where I lie.
We were out for a casual tour. It was great. No, but like kind of going back to that creative thing, talking about this season, like this year has just been crazy with the amount of snow across the range and across the West, and conditions have kind of like primed up for some really creative exploring. And we went up into the upper Alpine in the Wasatch into a place called Hogan's Fork, and me and my friend Anna DeMonte, shout out to Anna.
Shout out.
Yeah, she and I we went the weekend before, and we were like looking at this line, and it was this hanging snowfield that's up kind of like up in the back of Hogan's Fork in the Middle Fork, if you know where it is, and it's this hanging snowfield that required a rappel into it. Mm-hmm. And then the snowfield, when we were sussing it out the weekend before, we didn't really know how it was going to go. And then it was a hanging snowfield for a bit, and then another longer rappel back down into the apron that kind of ended in this little couloir that ended out into the basin. And we were just kind of like off the cuff talking about it, thinking about it. But then the week kind of went on after we were talking about it that weekend, and we started chatting about it. Conditions started to prime up. The avalanche safety went full green light. We were feeling pretty good. The wind was dying down. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those cool things where like I had a partner who was super excited and stoked, and she had that same creative mindset where we were like, let's just go check it out. You know, we
totally
approached it in the sense that we had the skill set, we understood what we were doing. And we didn't know. We didn't know if anybody had done it before. We didn't care. It just looked cool. We were like, let's go ski this thing because it looks dope.
Yeah.
And so the next weekend, we got up super early and we headed out there. We got up on the ridge line. We kind of had to do this like traverse that I've never done before. And we couldn't really find the top at first. We were like trying to find like, all right, are we standing on top of it now? We're standing on top of it now. We pulled out the GPS. We finally found it. And it was one of those things that was like perfect where we got to the spot and we're trying to figure out, okay, well, we clearly have to wrap into this. We look down, all right, we can see the snowfield.
What kind of exposure are we talking about? It's like some stats of like distances and lengths, maybe.
Yeah. So just to get to the top of the line was, I think it was like something like 3.5 to 4 miles of vert gain to that point, and about 4,500 vertical feet of climbing, or maybe 5,000 at that point.
Chill.
We had to traverse back around to get to it. And so like we were already, full on into a day by the time we even get to the top of this thing. And from the weekend before, we were looking at the line and we're like, it's maybe about, the snowfield we thought was maybe going to be about 250 feet long. Yeah. Kind of novel to some degree. Mm-hmm. But when we got on top of it, we looked down in there and we're like, man, this thing's longer than we thought. It also looked way steeper than we thought. And we were like, dang, we're committed. So fortunately, we were like, all right, we brought all the gear. So we brought because like I want to nerd out a little bit on the gear kit we had. So
let's do it.
We both had our Alpine harnesses on. I was wearing the Petzl Altitude. She had the BD Couloir. We brought the full wrap kit. So I had the Petzl Rad line. I have a 50 meter 6 mil cord on that, and then we also had a 70 meter Mammut twin rope that we used, and we brought that because we didn't know how long the rappel was going to be, because we had no beta, there was no information about this thing. I brought a full set of pitons, a hammer, a bolt kit, so a little hand drill, and a bolt, and a bunch of stoppers and our blade devices and a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So we were locked and ready to go because we didn't know. We had no beta. We were just like committed. And then we had a bunch of cordelette. So we roll up to the top of this line, and there's just this perfect looking boulder that's just sitting there, and it's just asking to be slung. So we put this sling around it, put an anchor on it, put a wrap ring on there, set up the rappel, threw it down. We didn't know how long it was going to be. Fortunately, our rope was perfect. The first rappel was about 35 meters. Dropped us right onto the top of the snowfield. And I just remember, like, I went first, got landed on the snowfield, and was like, whoa, this thing is way steeper and way more exposed than I thought at first. And it was about
how wide is it? Like,
so it's pretty wide. Like, it's probably about 150 feet wide. Mm-hmm. But the top of it was about 52 degrees, and then it angled out to about upper 40s. But you're fully exposed. Like, you're on this snowfield that if you fall, you're flying off this cliff at the bottom. And that cliff at the bottom ended up being also another 35 meter or 120 foot cliff band.
Yeah.
So I got down there. I called Anna down. She came down. We both kind of were like, all right, we're in it to win it now.
Yeah.
And so we're like high-fiving, smiling, and we're having a good time. But we were like, all right, we're locked in. So I started making some hop turns and definitely feeling super exposed, but feeling confident. The snow, fortunately, was soft. Felt pretty good. The next thing was we needed to go find the next spot to build an anchor to get off of the snowfield down through the next cliff into the apron. So I went down, tried to find the spot that I thought was going to be the spot for the anchor, and there wasn't a crack. There wasn't any weakness in the rock that would allow me to build an anchor. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm committed to putting a bolt in. So I didn't want to do that because it takes time and hand drilling a bolt. I don't know if you've ever done it or if you've ever seen anybody do it.
I haven't, but I could imagine.
Yeah. It's a process and it takes some time. And I didn't want to do that.
I've drilled in bolts before and it takes a while.
Yeah.
So
yes.
imagine
hammering them in. Yes. It's a whole different thing. So couldn't find a spot, and so I realized, I looked back up and I was like, okay, about 20 feet higher, there's this crack that I can see. So I booted back up to that spot, and then was pretty straightforward in taking some pitons out of my pack and smashing those in, and they fit. Wasn't exactly ideal, but they definitely fit, and I was super stoked about that. And then I called Anna down. She nailed it. She made some really nice looking hop turns. It was super cool to watch her make some very, very styled turns on some exposed terrain. She came down to me. We set up the rappel. And what was really cool about the rappel is it's so unique in the sense that it's this overhanging rappel through this cliff band.
Whoa, yeah.
And that's kind of unique in like ski touring or ski rappelling. There's a few other lines in the Wasatch that are like that, but like usually when you're rappelling on a ski line, you're kind of just going over an ice bulge or a cliff band.
Totally, yeah.
But not necessarily going through over a cave.
Yeah.
And that's what we ended up wrapping through. But we got down and it felt super good to finally hit like terra firma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know that feeling for sure. We were like,
okay, take a deep breath. The sketchy part's over. But we still had about 1,000 or 1,500 vertical feet of skiing left to do through the apron, but we were high-fiving, feeling pretty good. And
so cool.
What was really cool is that we believe that it's the first ascent. I talked to some of the locals and some of the guys that have been around for doing it for a long time, and they said that we've never seen anybody on that. And they've looked at it before, but they never went ahead and did it. And so we were stoked. So potentially first ascent. I'm never going to call it right off the bat, but I'd say that we were stoked to be. We didn't find any other hardware. We didn't find any other evidence, and so we called it.
Yeah, what did you call it?
Yeah, so we call it the Nodder Body, which for those that know, there's a line up in the Grand Tetons on the Grand Teton that's called the Otter Body, and it's this other massive hanging snowfield. It's like this classic line. So a little bit of a nod to that, because it's definitely like the little brother of the Otter Body, but we call it the Nodder Body. And so, we've already had a bunch of people hit me up about it, asking for beta, which I'm stoked on. I'm like, it's something cool and unique, but it's one of those lines that it's exposed.
It's legit.
Yeah. But it was cool. It was like it was part of the season that I'm going to remember forever, in the sense that it was something that it felt really creative to do, and we committed. We had the skill set, we had the right partnership, the right attitude, and we were both stoked that day. And I just remember getting back to the car and we cracked a couple beers and just remembering the day. And that's when finally the adrenaline kind of wore off, and we're like, all right, we made it. So,
dude, that's so cool. Congrats. That's really cool.
You.
That's awesome, especially just after how much has been skied and ridden and climbed, and how much has been done in the Wasatch, right? That's pretty sweet to have your kind of memento of I did that one. I contributed that experience. Hopefully someone else gets to experience it too.
Yeah, totally. That's the way I feel about it. It wasn't necessarily any pride in being the first to do it. It was just, we were creative in the sense of seeing it and being stoked to go and do it. And if we were the first, that's awesome. But I'm glad that we were able to fix the equipment for it so people can go and repeat it and give us the feedback. And if anybody needs beta on it, hit me up. I'll talk you down on it. But conditions have to dial in. You got to make sure you do it on a day that's you got to be ready for it. So
oh man, dude, that's so cool.
No, thanks.
A bit of a kick turn, if you will. You were you listed off some gear, and you were very specific with the gear you listed. And I kind of want to talk about that has something to do with your role at Backcountry. And maybe let's sort of get into that, because even just hanging out with you earlier today, it's you have a very thorough and well-versed understanding of gear and equipment. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what I've loved about my job and my career here at Backcountry is like I started here 10 years ago, almost to like the day. Like it's 10-year anniversary this month, which is crazy to think about. But I started in an accounting role at first, and then I moved into an assistant buyer role as on our merchandising team. But I've always been attracted to this brand and to Backcountry as like a gearhead. Like that's what I've always been. And there's something so cool and unique, and kind of like to the point of what we were just talking about with the Nodder body and like the gear and the equipment, and then having the skill set to use it properly. Like that's the connecting of the passion to truly optimizing what you want to do in the Backcountry. And so my role here at Backcountry is I'm the head of the hard goods merchandising team. So my job is to manage the team of buyers who buy all of the gear and equipment that's not bike product or not the apparel, but everything that's ski, snowboard, climb, camp, water, fly fishing.
Couple items.
Yeah, a couple things, a couple categories. But my team's amazing. They're the best buyers on the planet. Like they've built out like the best gear assortment. Our customers, they can see that on our site. Like we always try to keep in stock the best selling stuff, the best stuff that's going to allow you to do these types of adventures, right? Like be able to go out and do those types of things. And it's been really fun to connect like that with also my educational and my passion for business and wanting to optimize and like, grow a business, look at a category and be like, well, how can we grow this and how can we show the world like this brand, this cool new product and try to partner with those brands and blow it up and like, show this cool new technology this brand's bringing out. Yeah. So that's what my team's super passionate about. And like all the kudos goes to them. Like they're fantastic. They're wonderful. And it's been a fun career path. And I came up as a buyer in that team, and now in my role as kind of this director of that category. It's been awesome. And
well, that's cool too, man. 'Cause it's like, maybe not in every line of work does your understanding of what you do for a job directly reflect what you get to do for play. Totally. Where you're like, oh yeah, like that rope's like great. I love that rope for this reasons, and like this Saturday I'm gonna go use that rope.
100%.
As like cliche as that might be,
for sure.
Like it's like kind of unique. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because every time that somebody asks me that question, like if it's a new hire or anybody like a new employee that's like, hey, it's like, what do you like about Backcountry or like working here? I first off say the people. Like the people that we work with are fantastic. Like everybody that works here that has that same connection and passion, they're just awesome to work with. But the second thing is that I say that it's really cool to be able to connect my personal passion with what I do outside of work with my work. Yeah. And then be able to connect the dots and then use that knowledge base to be like, well, I can see in between the lines of like how we should market this or how we should tell this campaign story or whatever to the customer who is maybe looking to get into ski mountaineering or looking to get into fly fishing. It's like, here's some cool product and here's some nuance about this product that you may not know or that you may not be aware of, but this is why this is game changing, right? Totally. And my team is always on the hunt and the lookout for that type of product. And yeah, it's really cool. It's pretty fun.
That's rad. And what about, new things are being developed every day, right? And what's also exciting is that a lot of these categories in like outdoor space are seeing a lot of growth. Like you can just look at the quality of bikes over the last 10 years and like how much the technology has improved. Like in more recent years or even months, like what are some like newer, more exciting, standout like products or brands that you're kind of like psyched on? Is there anything like on your horizon where you're like, I'm excited?
There's so many things.
Let's pick one let's try pick one for skiing, climbing, fishing that you're psyched on.
All right, so the first one for ski, which this is more of like I saw this at a trade show in Germany. We went out to ISPO.
Germany.
It was great to go out there and see some of those crazy things that some of these people are designing. And it's not really a product that I think is ready for market for wide use, but it's coming. And what it was is that, so on your touring setup, how you have your heel riser, right?
Yep.
And what this this person group, whomever, I can't remember who exactly it was, what they designed is they built into the riser on a touring binding that is a magnet, and then what you do is you drill out. Again, this is not ready for mass consumption. There's some thought that needs to be put into this, but the concept was crazy to me. But the heel riser was a magnet, and on that magnet, or the heel riser had a magnet on it, and then you drill out on the bottom of your boot, and you also insert a magnet, and those magnets are facing the same polarity. So you know how you try to push two magnets together, how they kind of resist themselves?
Yeah.
So if you can imagine when you're stepping down on that riser, you never actually make contact to some degree. Like there's a level of magnetic resistance in between. It's like a magnetic cushion.
Yeah,
and so there's like
a dampener.
A dampening, and then there's also a little bit of propulsion as you kind of step off of it.
That's insane.
Right? Isn't that crazy? And I saw this thing and I was like, whoa, this is, isn't it wild? And I'm like, magnets have been around forever. Like, why didn't somebody think of this?
Something you've seen like a Dune movie.
Yeah, and maybe I'm like miss seeing what I saw, or to some degree, or like he was saying in half German, it was unbelievable. It was like kind of this crazy thing that like blew my mind. But on like a real product standpoint sense, there's a lot of cool product that's coming out. Like the one thing that stands out and it's a boot that I've been skiing on this year is the Zero G Peak Carbon from Technica. Okay. And it's this lightweight boot that weighs sub 1,000 grams, which is kind of this benchmark for like lightweight alpine touring boots, like ski mountaineering boots. But it's super stiff. So you can even, like, to me, like, I grew up ski racing, so I'm used to these stiff boots, whatever. And I've been skiing this boot all season. And when it's paired up with the lightweight ski and a lightweight binding to some degree, like, you can drive that thing. It's the carbon layup, the way that it's constructed. It's just like we're in this really cool arms race in ski boots right now, that every brand just keeps showing up with this cool new thing next season, this season, whatever. And there's some technology that's coming out, some fit technology in boots next year that involves BOA, which, you know, in snowboarding, they've been having that forever.
We're big on BOA and snowboarding.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We finally got it in ski boots. It took, I don't know how many years, but it took, we finally got it.
It's like a different, you got to understand how you can like have a shell of a boot is like such a rigid material to work with versus snowboard boots are like a fabric essentially, and that's like a lot easier to mold with a BOA. Yeah,
totally. And what these brands have done is that they've specifically built kind of these the way that they've molded their shells and the plastic layups that they've done. They've figured out ways where the BOA can do to some degree what the BOA is doing on a snowboard boot, where it's closing in and closing up that volume and giving you that performance snug fit, which I think is going to be great next year. It's going to be a lot of fit solutions for a lot of people. It may not be everybody's cup of tea because some people are going to still want to stick to a 4-buckle design, but I think it's a pretty cool thing that's coming out.
That's cool.
So that's ski.
That's ski. Yeah.
I think I did extra credit. I think I did 3.
I know. I think it's going to be hard to top the magnetic dampening and spring-loaded binding, but let's see what you come up with for climbing.
Yeah.
Any magnets?
So for climbing, any magnets? No. At least I don't think so. I'm trying to think.
That you're psyched on.
So in climbing, what I think is really cool is there's a brand called Edelrid, and they're out of Germany, but they're rising up the top as being this brand to kind of push forward with a sustainability story. And they're just doing it in the way that they are approaching their materials. They're approaching it in the way of the product series and the lines and the things that they're coming out with. They're meant to last longer so that you're not replacing them as often. But they also developed a rope over the last couple of seasons. It's called the Neo 3R, I believe, if I'm saying it correctly. And it's actually a rope that's made out of 50% of the material that it's made out of comes from old ropes. Okay. Which is crazy to think about. Like, conceptually,
first thought, you're like, bet no.
Not safe, right? Not cool. But, and I will say, I do believe that it's not used ropes. It's like scraps of rope that would have gotten thrown away anyways or unused. But they figured out a way to take the nylons and to reconstitute them and be able to weave them back into a new rope and have them be as strong as a rope should be, right? Cool. Because it's PPE, it's personal protection equipment, and that's it's been the limiter. So they've kind of broken that barrier of ultimately changing the game in the sense of like you can start to make these types of equipment that historically everybody probably thought like you never make a rope fully recycled. It's just impossible. Yeah. They've gotten to the point where they've like challenged the status quo and they've done that. So it's really cool. It's it's this
That's
premium
cool.
level rope,
Yeah.
and it's something that I think is just pushing the limits of what they're doing, but it's not necessarily a tech thing. I think it's just a really cool story that they're doing.
No, I think it's a rad story, and also just, you know, like to have the drive and pursuit to sort of follow that like eco concept, right? And like understand that like this is a cool example and like almost symbolic, if you will, that there's like, you know, there are solutions like this, or like upcycling and stuff like that, that if you like put the effort, and especially now like the technology behind figuring out these problems, you can come up with some really cool solutions.
100%.
Yeah. Which is rad. That's
so
cool.
That's climb.
Okay, and fish.
Oh,
we got
man.
recycled fishing lines,
No.
or like a magnetic spin back reel,
No.
laser guided flies.
So I think the one
like
cool
a Recco fly, I don't know.
there's a bunch of unique, cool, like very task specific things that are coming out of in fly fishing. Like there's these indicators now that, like if you've ever used like an airlock, which is essentially so for when you're doing dry dropper or a nymph rig, you have to put some sort of floating item on your line that indicates when the fly that's below the surface gets eaten by a fish, you'll see the little like kind of bob down.
For
so
a layman, maybe like a bobber.
Like a bobber,
okay.
essentially, yes. So in fly fishing, we don't call them bobbers because people like kind of hate that. But
Sorry, my bad. I don't fly
you're
fish.
good.
I don't fly fish, so I'm also.
That one's contentious.
You
to some
said
degree.
like nymph and something else, and as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about fly fishing. I was like,
that's funny. Yeah.
Okay.
If you call an indicator a bobber, most fly fishers will be like,
You're not
it's
a fly
not what it's
fisher.
called. Yeah. But anyways, it's essentially a bobber, but it's this design where historically, like you've had to like kind of screw on this little cap thing. You can always drop them. But there's this new one by Oros, I believe, Oropros, and it's essentially like a ball, styrofoam ball that you unscrew in the middle, and then you set it on there and you screw it back together. So you can't really lose it because it's two big halves of like a foam piece.
Yeah.
And you screw it on there, and it allows you to adjust it. Like you can screw it on one part of your line if you're like, oh, that's not deep enough.
You can like loosen it.
Yeah, you can loosen it and pull it up, and so that the fly can go down. But there's a lot of new cool rod designs. There's a lot that's going on and being very specific with. There's the thing called check nymphing, which is essentially you're fishing flies underneath the water, but you're not using a bobber. You're just kind of using the line as the indicator. So when the fish hits it, you see the line kind of snap.
Whoa.
And that's how you set the hook.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah, and there's rods that are like longer and they have a flex pattern to them that allows you to like feel that. So yeah,
interesting.
If you want to get
the flex pattern of a rod, that's actually kind of like pretty crazy. Again, I don't know anything about fishing, but I'm almost thinking like the crossover of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you know, a ski and a snowboard, you can change up the construction of the core of the snowboard or ski to like respond to like certain things you want. And like, do they do that in like for fishing rods?
Oh, totally. It's the same. It's relatively the same concept, but then they build a rod and they pick the materials, the way that they lay up these materials on the rod, how much they put near the base, how much they put near the tip, how long the rod is, things like that. It's very similar in the sense of you're looking for that sensitivity, that feel that you want, just like a snowboard or a ski. So I think if I were to rank the like techie nerd things from activities, I feel like cyclists are probably at the top.
Yeah,
Just how nerdy they get with.
There's nerds, man.
I mean, I like the mountain bike, but man, they can go off.
And
then I feel
there's
like
just so many moving parts.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just and you're like, oh, you're 29.5 or 67 or whatever. I'm just like, I lost you. And then and I'm a Gearhead nerd. And then below that, I think honestly, fishing might actually be up there because it's just so unique and nuanced about how you can approach things and the flies themselves and the names that they have. Like, it's just insane.
It's a whole world.
Yeah.
Totally.
But yeah, so those are the three things.
Rad,
those are a couple
That's
things.
Cool. That's some pretty solid insight.
Yeah.
That's definitely a very high degree of insight. Dude, well, we should kind of change pace, get sort of like back into the action, and I want to talk about Wolverine Cirque. You just you have a video coming out.
Yep.
You did all 16 lines in Wolverine Cirque in a day.
Yes.
Maybe just kind of like walk us through where did that idea come from? You know what is Wolverine Cirque? Okay. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, no. So Wolverine Cirque is this beautiful head wall of couloirs, chutes, whatever you want to call them, up in Upper Cottonwoods. It kind of is on the border between Little and Big Cottonwood, and it's this perfect cirque, which is, you know, it's a circle of lines, and they're all broken by these rock bands, and so each one of them is an individual couloir or an individual chute, and there's 16 of them that are named per se. There's like kind of some in-betweens and some stuff, but the consensus is that there's these 16, and they're in this book called The Shooting Gallery, and yeah, so that's what the place is. And the whole concept for what we ended up doing, like it's this thing that Cam Price, who he works on the marketing merchandising team at Backcountry as our marketing development fund manager, senior manager, and he came up with this idea of he just wanted to go ski these lines. It had been done before by a few people in the Wasatch, and some of these people are like our idols, like Noah Howell, who I do believe was a backcountry athlete at some point back in the day. So shout out to Noah. And he, like, it's just this concept of skiing 16 of these lines in one day. It adds up to about 10,000 vertical feet of climbing. Nice. And it's the hard way, which it's all boot packing, so it's not like you don't get the pleasure of a skin track.
I was curious about the logistics of it, because you just like drop it and you just kind of like you just boot it back up.
Yeah, so the way that we ended up doing, and then I think the total distance was like something like 11 miles or something. But the way that we sort of concepted it, we started talking about it. Cam brought it up, and I got stoked, I got psyched. We brought in JM. Who's a really good friend of ours in the Wasatch, and he's just the hype man, and we came up with the concept, and we started talking about like, hey, what's the game plan here? Like, how are we going to approach this thing? And so we decided that we were going to kind of go counterclockwise, starting with the huge chute, which is the line that sits on the most, I guess, easterly. It's the east facing, but the most west of the lines, and then we were going to go counterclockwise. Okay. And so we skied that down, and I will say, like, I'm stoked about the movie. It's dropping on March 9th. I think we're doing a premiere at TF Brewing. So if this comes out before then, probably not. But if it does, then we'll hopefully see you guys there. But we dropped in on the huge chute. The day was super cold. The morning started super cold, which was good and bad. Like we wanted colder temps because we don't want to be concerned about like wet slide avalanches or overheating. Yep. So we dropped in on the huge chute, and then we decided, like, all right, so what we're going to do is to get out of this, we're going to boot pack up Granny, which is this kind of largest chute in the center of the thing. And then we're going to use that same boot pack for most of the lines. Yeah. Except for when we got onto the kind of the other side of the clock, where we were going to, on the back 6, there's 16. So after we did the first 10, we were going to do the last 6 utilizing a new boot pack. Okay. So we did Granny's, and I ended up counting how many steps the Granny boot pack was, and it was 586 steps. Okay. So times that by 9, and by the time we finished with that thing, it was like permanently cemented into the slope. Yeah. But yeah, then I set up a booter up the slipstream, and you'll have to watch the film to see how it ended. But
how it all ended. Yeah. Okay, cool.
But no, it was a beautiful day out. Like, it started super cold, but it was we just had a good crew. We were having a blast. We were laughing about a bunch of stuff. Making sure we all ate as much as we could, drink as much liquids. Man,
what were you like snacking on the whole time? Like,
yeah. So a friend of mine, she actually made us like this pile of chocolate covered pretzels.
Good call. And
we just shoved those in our pocket. We were just jamming on that all day long. We also brought some Scratch product. We were chewing on some gummies, some Sour Patch watermelons, which were great.
Oh yeah.
We drank a bunch of electrolytes. Like, I got super jacked up on electrolytes. It was great. We just made sure we were drinking water. And JM brought, I think, a peanut butter and banana sandwich that was like completely smushed. But no, it was fun. It was like one of those days where, like, we had to keep each other going to some degree.
Totally. I was gonna say, so how long did it take?
So I think total moving time was probably, right at 10 hours. Okay. I think the total day was like right at 11, because there was some stoppage time because we had a film crew out there. We were stoked to be able to record the whole thing and document it. But we were kind of aiming to do it in 10 hours. We were trying to do 1,000 feet per hour, and we locked it in. And so we were pretty proud of that. And
that's cool.
Yeah. No.
Be able to like hone in on that and just like it's fun when you end up in those situations, right? That you're just sort of in this, some scale of a sufferfest,
for sure,
if you will, right? Yep. Or like maybe type 2 fun, if like on the varying degrees of fun. That just sounds like I don't know, right? It's not completely out there. It's this everyday thing that a lot of people in the backcountry, especially around here, are familiar with, and you've either skied it or you like know of it, but then to just kind of take this like alternative scope is, I'm sure it was like pretty fun to be like,
for sure.
Like I'm not in Patagonia and like doing something dangerous and I'm out there, like I'm kind of in my backyard. Like I was that like a nice added layer to be like, we're close to home.
Yeah, it was cool because we always knew that we're like, well, we're here and we're in this place that we know it's beautiful and we're close to home, and it was just fun to like go out and just know that we're doing a long day, and by like I think it was like all of us agreed by like line pretty much halfway point, so like by like line 8 to 10, we just like looked around because we just hammered through the first.
Okay, yeah.
We were just like, let's go. We were going and everybody was like helping leading the boo pack and just kind of getting everybody jacked up. And then about like line 10, I could see that
music slowing down.
Yeah, we were kind of just like
a little quieter.
But then we each started like jacking each other up, which was great. Like we started like lifting each other's spirits, which was awesome. But it was cool. We were like connecting the dots, and like you said, we didn't feel like we were totally exposed, and it's something that's been done before, but it was our version, and we were doing it in this way where it was all three of us combined. So
that's so rad. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Dang, that's like 2 pretty notable kind of experiences to tick off this season, you know, and like a bit of momentum, and kind of getting towards like the ending of our conversation here. I'm curious, like what seems like you always maybe have an idea, something cool on the horizon to do outside, and what's next? You got any plans for like another adventure, or what are you like? I got some time to refuel. What's the future looking like?
I got some stuff in the works. I think like what's exciting right now is that I feel really good about being out in the mountains right now. It's I mean, I think a lot of people can attest to this, that like going out there and doing this it's somewhat of a respite from what you deal with in life, right?
Totally.
Things ebb and flow in your life, It's never going to be perfect, and there's been some stuff that I've been working through, and it's been really good to be out in the mountains and doing these objectives and challenging myself and completing them. And so the few things I do have on the docket. So I'm going to go out to Crested Butte in Aspen to do the Grand Traverse, which I don't know if you know what that is.
I'm not familiar, no.
So it's this ski mountaineering race that you ski starting at midnight from Crested Butte to Aspen, and it's a 40-mile race.
That's fantastic.
And about 10,000 vertical feet of climbing. And it's this hybrid of people do it on like Nordic stuff, people do it on ski mountaineering stuff. Yeah. But it's this really kind of endurance race, and I'm doing it with a buddy of mine.
Cool.
So super excited about that. As heading into the summertime, like I've got my eye on some climbing lines. There's some first ascents that I've been looking at trying to complete in the summertime.
Locally?
Locally.
Awesome.
And then a few things up in Idaho that I've been kind of jonesing for. Also looking to get to Alaska. I've never been, and I'm super excited. I know that's a place that's close to your heart to some degree. And then trying to get to Patagonia in the fall. I think like I want to get down there and go climbing and go skiing in the Austral winter. But there's a lot of local missions I've got. Yeah. And I kind of like, so it's kind of cool. It's like the Nodder Body, that first descent, like we came up with the idea like the weekend before. And then
totally
made it happen the next weekend. So those tend to happen, and I like that. It's like that creative kind of quick twitch, get it done.
So. Totally cool turnaround. Dang, man. Well, that's awesome. I mean, like straight up congrats on like those 2 achievements in general are really impressive.
Thanks,
man.
Like
that's solid. It's like sick that
fun.
You kind of are able to implement this like mindset with your understanding of the mountains and of course your gear, and then sort of like execute it by doing these like more abstract creative things that hopefully are fulfilling to you, and I would imagine inspire a bunch of people as well.
Well, I mean, I think what I think is really cool that what this community locally does and what people at Backcountry do is that we work a 9-to-5 job, and there's a lot of people out there that are doing that are essentially weekend warriors. And when you find that partnership or that community that just builds you up, and you get that motivation to go do these things, like it's really cool to be able to work hard, like come into the office, do things, get it done, but then also, spend your time outside, like fulfilling and hitting these objectives and doing these things with cool people.
Yeah.
And it's been really great. It's been a really great season. So I appreciate the kind words and
man.
And it was good
Solid.
getting out with you this morning.
Solid. Yeah,
so,
that was good.
Yeah.
Dang, man. Well, any thank yous you'd like to toss out?
Oh man. Like I said, thank you to my team at Backcountry. Like the buyers on my team they're fantastic. They know who they are. They're awesome. They make my coming to work every day and what we do here at Backcountry amazing, and I'm excited to see what we're going to do into the future, and so super stoked on that. Thank you to you for hosting me or for having me and having this conversation, and yeah, no, I'm grateful. I'm thankful for the community. I'm thankful for everybody out there that's motivating each other, that's stoking each other out. Like, I think it's a really cool thing, and I think sometimes we get lost in we're on the skin track, just say hi, share that sense of good friendliness, community. Because I think that goes a long way, and I think building up that motivation or that friendliness is something that's it carries a long way.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. Really appreciate it. It was sick getting to catch up with you for a bit, man.
Yeah, man.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay tuned for more episodes. And from the crew at Backcountry, we'll see you out there.